Good evening, Jeopardy fans, and welcome to another episode of Hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel presented by thejeopardygfan.com. It is Monday, January the 23rd, 2017 at 8:05 p.m. Once again, I am Andy Saunders, and I am the moderator for tonight's panel. We've got a small but mighty panel this evening. As always, I introduce in order of when you first appeared on the show. So first up, thanks for joining me to Amanda Borofsky. You won 2 games a couple weeks back. Thanks for being able to join us.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
And a little bit more recently, from last Friday's episode, January 20th, Hardy Clervil. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Now, as always, if you've got any questions or comments here on Hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel, you're always welcome to tweet them in using the Hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel. I do keep an eye on that during the show. Also, there is a YouTube chat that you can use to, leave questions, comments, whatever you'd like, and certainly you're welcome to do either that. If I like them, I will certainly read them out. Let's see. Where's a good spot to start tonight?
I was going to tell the story about how I came to apply because you had asked me if my husband had ever tried out, and that was the only reason that I tried. If you don't mind.
Oh, good. By all means, go ahead.
Yeah, I've watched Jeopardy since it started. I think it was 1984. Is that right?
Yeah.
And I tried out for the teen tournament when I was 13, I think. Didn't even get close. I went to the audition, but they cut me after the written test. So my husband, Evan, has been taking the online test for quite a while. And this time, he said he was going to lock himself in the office and take the test. I said, well, I'll sit out in the living room and I'll take it too, just for fun. And long story short, I got called for an audition. And I said, well, I probably won't get picked, but I'll go. It'll be fun to go to the audition. And they called me and it was crazy. I still can't believe it. Like I have the picture of me with Alex and I still cannot believe that it actually happened.
And not only did you get the call, you also won a pair of games.
Yeah, that doesn't seem real either. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great story, and I hope Evan isn't too upset.
No, he's more excited than I am, so that's kind of weird. But yeah, he's my biggest fan.
Now, since Amanda has kind of shared her kind of story to the show a little bit, Hardy, do you want to share yours?
Yeah, so I was the same way. From the kids tournament, I've always tried out, and to the high school, the teen tournament, and college tournament. And it wasn't until last year I ever had my first in-person audition, even though I've been taking the test for years. So I took the test, got called in that June to New York. To Midtown to Manhattan to do the in-person audition, and talks about my obsession with tennis, and I guess they love that. When I did it with Karina and everyone. So, and then I got the call. Actually, ironically, when I was at the US Open, I got a call during the middle of the match, and obviously I didn't answer it. But then I saw the number, so I just ran out of the stadium and just made sure I was clear of any tennis matches going on. Got the call, and lo and behold, it was the call. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
That's awesome. Now, once you both got the call, what did you both do in terms of preparation?
I watched tons of episodes, looked at J Archive, tons of old episodes online. I even, the pen that they give you in the audition, I used for the clicker and to practice the buzzer. Tried to catch up on the weak spots, which is for me is like politics and religion. So those are so I tried to really study and memorize the saints and all that. So all the little intricate little things that people do to prepare.
Yeah, I kind of, I tried to look up things that I wasn't really strong on, like mythology and things like that. I have Shakespeare and mythology flashcards that did not help whatsoever. But also, when I had to fill out the paperwork, they ask if there are any dates that you're not available, and I put that I was going to Europe for a little over 2 weeks, and they had originally called and wanted me to come the week before. I said, well, I'm happy to fly out there, but if I win, I can't come back the following week. And they said, okay, well, forget we called. We may call in the future. We may not. Just forget this call ever happened. So then, of course, I was freaking out. But I did not get any extra studying in because I was in Europe. It ended up being that I flew out the week after I got back. So I really...
Wow.
But I did use J-Archive a lot, just basically the front page with the final questions. And so that's where I learned about Bayeux Tapestry. And for some reason, that was one of my daily doubles that I got wrong. I could not remember what it was called.
Oh.
So that is the one most memorable thing that I did, that I do remember studying that I could not. But I had a problem every time I had a daily double or in all 3 finals that I got wrong. I froze up and I could not access parts of my brain.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But yeah, I did. That is one of the things that I use for studying.
Now that's interesting. I haven't really heard too much about, the whole, froze up thing. That's not something that a lot of contestants have mentioned here on panel. So
I can admit, because I had 3. So the first one was Prague was the correct response. And I said Budapest. I did not know that. I don't claim to ever have known that. The second one was the Lord of the Flies. Yeah, Lord of the Flies.
The Lord of the Flies, which was a really weird question. I mean,
I remember that question. That was really obscure, I think.
It felt like categorizing that as a classic movie seemed to upset quite a few people.
And I remember that film was panned too. People, it wasn't very well done. So that was just strange, but yeah.
Well, the thing is, my answer was I hate to use the word stupid, but it was like, okay, I need to come up with something in that time frame. And they tell you over and over again, put something down. Don't leave it blank. Whatever you do, don't leave it blank. And I could not think. And so I just wrote down a movie from that era. I don't even think it was the right year. And, the answer was something about a kid writing in saying, I'm fat and I wear glasses. And I chose a movie about a bunch of slim teenagers, West Side Story, which it is obviously not that. But I don't know. I can't explain it. But, and then, the last one was the infamous Tesla and Edison, which I responded, who are Tesla and I know Tesla and Edison. I've seen the movie The Prestige a million times with David Bowie was Tesla. So I know that, and I could not think. Asked me to write down my own address. I could not have done it. So that's the only explanation I have.
Yeah, for me, for my phone Jeopardy, the one of Dolly Parton, I just didn't know the song. I knew a bunch of other Dolly Parton songs, and then I just had no idea what Coat of Many songs that she did. It was Coat of Many Colors, and so I just thought, and I knew she did a lot of country music albums, even if they weren't number 1. I knew she's a prolific artist, so I just went to Loretta Lynn, who I know also still makes country albums, but that one I just didn't know, so I just tried to do the best I could. I don't think Dolly Parton even popped up in my mind in that instance. So
to me, playing that one at home was very much, at least to me, it was a kind of a, this feels like it would be Dolly Parton. I know she's been, doing a lot of promotion, album promotion lately.
Okay.
And one of those things that it felt like to me playing at home, it made sense. But I can definitely see why, and especially because you tape back in September as well.
Right. Yeah.
That it might have been before a lot of that promotional work.
Yeah.
So one of those finals that probably plays easier now than it did then.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was pretty confident. I mean, women sing is a very broad category, so it just happened to be country music.
Now, see, that would have been I haven't seen it. I haven't seen your episode, but
Open
I
benefits.
know Code of Many Colors, if that's what you're talking about. I could have sung it for the judges.
Yeah, it was opera, jazz, R&B, new wave,
Yeah.
anything but country. So just luck of the draw, can't choose the category that. So yeah. And Neil, of course, made an amazing wager. I knew as soon as he was wager, I was like, he wagered well. I was like, I'd have to rely on him wagering badly, but he knew what he was doing. So.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, though. A lot of people, so many people do wager poorly that it's almost a surprise when they do wager well.
Yeah, yeah. But I'd be talking to you, and he was a smart person. He's a surgeon, so he's a really smart person. So, but like with the game before, it was a lot game for him. So I really had no idea what kind of wagering strategy, how adept he was at.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Because if I knew like he made a really smart wager before, I wouldn't have gone straight for the lock.
Yeah, and mine, sorry, the one that I lost, I seriously considered wagering 0 because I don't know a whole lot about science and not enough to where, I panicked. I don't know. And I thought, okay, well, if it's really easy, it's going to be embarrassing if I bet 0. So I have to bet, assuming that Joe is going to bet everything. And it worked against me.
Well, again, you felt a kind of, both of your opponents kind of wagered properly, and
right.
Cause not only Joe, basically Kelsey had one bet. Looking at the scores here, 21,000, 14,200, 6,800. She had exactly one proper bet she could make, and she did that. So,
yeah, and she would have won if Joe had, assumed he was, going for it all.
Now, I guess, had you considered, betting, being that, or had you thought about betting $1 less, just of where the scores were?
No.
I meant for Amanda there, and because.
Oh, in that one, no, yeah. I was literally shaking when because they give you a big Sharpie and a tiny, to me, it seemed like a little tiny piece of paper. Yeah. And I was just shaking, trying to think, okay, bet to beat if second place, that's double, try to beat them. That was the only thing I could think of. I didn't think of any other strategy.
Why people might mess up wagering, because it really is a pressure moment. Like they give you 2 minutes to do all this math and figure it out, and then the contestant coordinators are standing behind you, and you have to write it right. And sometimes, and so they say, "Oh, write it over again." They made me write it my wager twice because it didn't look right on the LCD. So, and then there's Maggie and Brenda standing there, and waiting on you to write your numbers. So I can totally retrospectively understand why people make bad wagers and mistaken wagers. So
yeah, there's so much going on because when you're watching it on TV, it looks like there are these 3 people out in space and nobody's around them, and it's calm and quiet, and then the cameras go off and there's they're fixing your makeup and they're telling you things, and
it's a whirlwind.
Yeah, for my personality, I'm not able to. I don't know if it's an attention span thing, but I'm done at that point. I've proved it 3 times, but I cannot think.
Hey, you won twice. You were doing something right.
Yeah, my wins, I don't consider that I excelled. It's just, to me, something happened and I ended up with more money somehow. I don't know.
Well, you played well enough in the main game,
Yeah.
and got yourself in a position where your first two games you needed one of your opponents to get Final Jeopardy, which didn't happen, and
Right.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's the luck of the questions. You don't.
mm-hmm.
I don't know.
That's perfectly okay. Now, I guess, yeah. So Hardy, let's move on to kind of your respective contestant interviews a bit. Now, does your brother have any interest in Jeopardy?
A little bit, yeah. He does. Yeah, he and I mean, we joke with each other all the time. So we always used to joke about, like, if he went on Jeopardy, if there was like a question about the NHL or college football. So it was like sports Jeopardy maybe, but like he's like, Final Jeopardy, if it's he doesn't watch Jeopardy, but if it's like about sports, he will tune in and watch and see if he can get the answer right. So, but yeah, I mean, yeah, he said he thought about trying out, but he's not like, not as big into trivia as I am in general. So, yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, with your interviews, Amanda, Alex couldn't stop talking about Scrabble.
Well, actually, I think if you paid, I haven't watched them multiple times or anything, but from what I remember, he would lead me one way and I kind of turned it back. He wanted to talk about my trip to Europe, and I said, "Oh, we went for the World Scrabble Championship in Lille." And I think I got a lot of negative feedback in social media because my life is so boring. I just talk about Scrabble, but I really am not any more exciting than that. Sorry.
Yeah, I think the three things I talked about my art history background and my obsession with tennis. Those are because they asked me for three things that you might want. And I wanted to talk about art history because I thought that'd be interesting. And then you just talked about my brother, so I was like, okay.
Yeah, well, one of the other things that I had on my list, I was an extra in a Sam Raimi movie. It was called The Lunatics, which is funny in itself. I was not a lunatic. I was an extra at a wedding. I guess I probably should have gone with that because that happened when I was in school and I couldn't have worked Scrabble into it.
That is pretty cool. Yeah.
But, and on the third show, a funny thing happened. They cut something out that Alex said, and the edit looked really weird. So it looks like I just say, I'm trying to think my husband's proposal.
Oh, yes.
We went to Vegas. I knew he was going to propose. Long story short, he proposed at the hotel room instead of, out at this fancy dinner. And Alex said something about making him sleep in another room or another bed or something, which I wasn't offended, but I could see why they would want to cut that out.
Yeah, that's an iffy one.
Mm-hmm.
But the way they cut it made it look like I said, he proposed in the hotel room and I had bought a new dress. And then he said, "Okay, now let's go to the categories." And I was like, "Oh, this girl's crazy."
Well, it seemed like to me at least, it seemed like they were more of a cut for time than a cut for content, because they cut for time all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was fine, but there was one negative thing that I found online with this woman talking about how, I could just slap these contestants. Did you hear she bought a new dress and she didn't get proposed? He proposed in the room or something, something like that. And
I will say social media can be savage sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I read the worst. I stayed away from Twitter, but Facebook, most of it was very positive. I was surprised.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
very nice people.
A lot of people thought I didn't say what is, but that's just my New York talks. Talking really quickly, just say what is. No, I said it. I'm pretty sure.
So, in case you're watching, you've noticed we've got another panelist here. Fred Vaughn is able to join us, so thanks for joining us, Fred. Hopefully your audio is working. It sounds like you're testing things.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Okay, great. So, thanks for joining us.
No problem. And year, it's since my first episode aired.
Oh
So
wow.
happy Jeopardy then.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, and I may have to pop out because I just saw a nice little error in Google Hangouts.
uh-oh. Okay, so I'll talk to the. We'll just
I'll be back.
refresh. Okay, perfect. So let's see. I get my next question for you guys. Do you have any plans for your winnings, your respective winnings?
I mean, I won $2,000, so not really. I might probably just pocket it for now. I don't have any immediate ideas yet, so.
Well, we already had this trip planned for Scrabble, which I know is boring. But yeah, we're going to Malta in April, and then we're flying over to Italy and going up from Rome to Florence to Milan.
Oh wow.
And one of my bucket list items is to go to La Scala in Milan. So tickets aren't available yet, so I'm hoping we still get in there. But yeah, that's our big plan.
That's cool.
Nice. So, moving on to discussion a little bit about last week's episodes. I think the big controversy last week, certainly at least on my own site, was the whole hullabaloo surrounding Eli's acceptance, or the acceptance of Eli's response of "Do you feel lucky, punk?" In that on Monday's show, just before the first commercial break, asking about the obviously the famous movie quote that's technically "Do I feel lucky?" from the Dirty Harry series, but how I mean. I guess my first question for you on this one is to Hardy. Did it even go on behind the scenes? Like, did they stop tape at that point, or?
I don't remember them stopping tape for that.
So Alex. So basically, Eli gave his answer, and then Alex was pretty much just like, "Do you feel lucky? Do I feel lucky?"
Yeah. I don't remember any like stop Alex and then go to the judges and then re-recording or retaping that part. There's a couple other sections in that week that occurred. I don't remember. I mean, it was the first game of the week, and I wasn't able to watch that one this week, but I don't remember there being a stoppage.
Okay. Now, I mean, to me, it seemed. I mean, the clue did say it was a four-word quote, and so I was surprised. I mean, a lot of people were surprised. No more so than I would say Laurie McDougall, who had a who gave a three-word response and was negged because the clue said four. Back during her game back in June, and so I mean it was kind of she was very surprised. Yeah. So yeah. Now, as a former contestant, Fred, you watching, were you surprised that they accepted the 5-word response of "Do you feel lucky, punk"?
A little bit. I mean, only because my mind was like, okay, because I'm thinking, okay, how many different ways have I heard that botched, in pop, in the years since, that was a thing. So I'm like, okay, I kind of thought I'd heard it as "Do you feel lucky?" Something like that. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm really unreliable here. So if they're gonna go with that, of course, I'm the person that some people think got robbed by referring to a recreational vehicle, referring to an RV on one of my episodes. So where it probably could have fit, but the more I thought about it, I realized no, there really was a reason why I lost money on that.
Now, was there anything that you remember in your games, Amanda, that, felt that hinged upon, a certain number of letters or a certain number of words?
There was the one where the contestant misspoke. It was "hit me, baby, one more time." She said,
Yes.
"Hit me one more time."
Yep.
And we were paused for I got a daily double, and we had to wait quite a long time for them to listen to it over and over again. They were, we were all sure that she had it wrong, but they wanted to listen to it. They made sure that that she didn't say baby. And then they figured it out. They started taping again, and then they said, okay, and then they put it back on me. Alex said his little bit about how the score had changed, and then I had to figure out how much to wager for double Jeopardy, the daily double. And that's the only, I think there was an issue with Mukund. They had to re-record it, and I think he mentioned when he was on the show that he had to hear his voice being played over, him reading the answer over and over again while they lined up the recording correctly somehow. But there may be others, but those are the only ones I can think of.
Now, actually, it's funny that you bring up that with Mukund, because in the story that that Laurie McDougall mentioned with the whole thing that she got nigged on, they had to they actually stopped tape after her neg at that point because they felt they needed to reloop things. And again, so again, I guess it seemed like she was sitting there and she's reliving her mistake for 5 minutes, much like Mukund was, and having to, I guess you guys were fortunate that you didn't have to deal with that in your own games. Listening to yourself make the mistake over and over and having to rebound from that. But Laurie told me, it's like, well, she felt like quite a goober, and like, I mean, how would you even rebound from that?
Well, I had a hard enough time with the ones that I got wrong without having to hear them over and over again. So
that's really interesting. I never thought about that. Fortunately, I was never in that position. But that's. I mean, because it might depend on how wrong the answer is, or maybe it's. I don't think I would mind if it was close, but.
Yeah, I mean, in my first show, I mean, the other two contestants had a situation that caused about a good 5-minute delay.
Oh wow!
First question. So here I am on the other side of it, feeling like death warmed over because it was a Friday show, so I'd been in makeup for going on 7 hours, and as nervous as it gets, while they're going over, okay, both of these people got the answer right and got allowed to answer it. I think that's almost worse, when you're not hearing it over again. And I mean, I guess the other story I can relate is 2008 when they did the college tournament in Madison, and I attended one of the weekend tapings, one of the Saturday tapings. They had to loop through things for pretty much all 3 episodes I was in the audience for, and it was kind of jarring. I mean,
Yeah, for me, last week when Neil, they had to stop tape for Neil's answer. I think it was a celebrity. Was it If They Married? And he only answered Harry Carey, the last name, I think.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then so they had to stop, and Alex was like, "You have to re-record it," and then Alex accepted it because they didn't ask for both the first and last names initially. So Yeah, that was only stop taping, I think. And then for some reason, I don't know why, they had to retape Alex saying the final Jeopardy clue, which is strange. At first, I thought maybe wait, I had a little like slight moment of hope that maybe there's something wrong with the clue or something to that regard.
Right.
Naively, but no, he just said something wrong. In the clue. So it's those moments and just like so.
Yeah, we had quite a few where he had to record. I don't think any of the finals were like that, but there were other clues that he had to record the audio for during the commercial break. But different. But they don't go back and they don't tell you, we're going to give you money because he said this word wrong. They figure you're reading it, so they put it on you that, to figure out the correct response.
Actually, having kind of glanced through today's show, I thought there was going to be a situation similar to that really late in Double Jeopardy.
I think we're going to be talking. I think I'd like to save this one for next week's episode, Fred. I know exactly what you're talking about, and
Back next week, y'all.
I suspect it's going to be a bit of a doozy, especially because the West Coast hasn't seen it yet. But
it'll be worth your while.
Oh man, no, I know exactly what you're talking about, Fred, and it's going. To be honest, I don't even. It's one of those things where I don't even know how I think the judges should have ruled on it. It was, that borderline. So, yeah.
And it is queued up on the DVR because my husband hasn't watched it yet, so he's gonna.
I haven't watched it yet.
He's in for a surprise.
Oh boy! So my next question actually is because I suspect.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay, Fred. My next question also, it's some of the people on the YouTube chat are kind of, restless for me to ask this. Both, I guess, Hardy and you, Amanda, both had the opportunity because you got the chance to tape later in the week.
Mm-hmm.
You had the opportunity to eat lunch on Sony's dime in the Sony commissary. So my question for you guys is, what did you have for lunch?
Oh, this is a good story, actually. I have a good story. So I was sitting right across from Neil eating lunch with him, and he's a vegetarian. So he used a lot of his money for candy bars, and then lo and behold, a candy bar category showed up. So I think we're both chuckling to ourselves, that's really funny. And he had a Milky Way, and then Kathy answered Milky Way to the Fifth Avenue question, which all give us a good laugh. But I had a burger and fries, I think. I had burger and fries, a Diet Coke maybe, and maybe a cookie, I think I can remember. Or maybe that was just something in the green room. I don't know. But I did definitely had a burger and fries.
Well, I think I had the salad bar. I was trying to control my sugar so it didn't get too high or too low. And I didn't want to have a stomach ache and worry about that. I had already done 2 shows at that point, so everybody had questions for me about what it was really like to be up there, and so that was fun. I think I got iced tea and salad bar. They did have a lot of options. It was really cool. I was hoping there would be some famous people in there.
I was hoping that too. I was like, who is shooting a Sony movie right now?
Well, Alex had mentioned to the audience that, I don't know if he does it on everyone, but he mentioned that the Wizard of Oz was filmed on that lot. And to me, that was the coolest thing ever. So just being there, that was worth the trip to me.
Because it was the old MGM lot.
Right.
Right, yeah.
By the way, gotta ask, did Karina try to push all the candy bars in creation on you at lunch?
Oh, I think they were putting candy bars in people's hands. It wouldn't have worked out for me. I mean, I don't know if it could have been any worse, but yeah, I would have been asleep.
I was very resistant because I said, okay, I knew what I could take.
Yeah.
I was pretty hungry at that point, I think, because I don't know. There wasn't really much any appetizing things in the green room that I can remember. So yeah, I was pretty hungry. And that was the last show. So just waiting the whole day.
So what is it like? I guess sitting through 4 games in the bullpen, and waiting. Like, are they going to call my name? Are they going to call my name? Both, Fred and Hardy, you guys both got to experience that. So,
Hardy, you go first because you got it the freshest.
I think it was an advantage. I mean, the worst part was that I knew all the Final Jeopardies that week but not mine. So that was a little bit annoying. But it boosts your confidence, especially knowing that like if there's a game or two, like the one with the religion category that I absolutely bombed. So it's a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag because then you get a better idea of how the game actually plays in real time. It's nervous, especially when you see your friends and family on the left and you can't say a word to them.
Yes.
It's a little, yeah, it's a little weird and ominous. So, but you talk to the other contestants and it's pretty cool. I think overall I liked that I was last.
Yeah. Well, for me, it was a few hours of trying to take mental notes of what everybody's doing,
right,
how to present, and then I forgot all of it. It called my name because I was the last person. I was the second person called for the Friday show. So I mean, I was the last man on board, and I was like, okay,
now wasn't your first and also wasn't your first week or your week the day that they needed everyone because there was the 000?
Yes, and that made things way more interesting. I mean, that just up the stakes. So I'm thinking, okay, and no offense, because Claudia Corriere and I talked.
That wasn't her fault.
My attitude was, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what was like being in what was the audience? How did the audience react? How did the coordinators react?
It was a shock all around.
That's crazy. Yeah.
And of course, it's weird because last week was Martin Luther King Day, and the show ended up airing on Martin Luther King Day last year.
Oh wow! Okay, yeah.
Very civil rights clue.
So yeah, wow.
Mm-hmm.
And what TV at it again?
So, my next question: how is it different, watching Jeopardy now that you've taped an episode of the show?
I can't wait to find out. No. I have watched it. Like, well, I was saying before, I watched to find out how Joe did because and I wanted to see how Libby did because she was there on the day. They had to come back the following day, but I haven't watched any other ones yet.
I guess for me, especially with wagering, I sympathize with the contestants a lot more. It's just like it's hard enough to do it like at home and like figure out the math and you have no time limit. But when you're in person with the bright lights and the audience and the chaos going around you, it's just so much more difficult. So I'm gonna lay off people that do bad wagers from now on and be more sympathetic for sure.
Yeah, it's and I have the weird part thing of Jeopardy coming on in the afternoon here, so I'm usually catching it at work, kind of on the fly because I work at a cable company, but then getting home and DVR, had it on the DVR, and at that point I can pause it and say, okay, here's what they would do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which I didn't have in the studio.
Yeah.
I had, and my last show was kind of like really proof positive that I needed all that tonight.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember any of your the subjects of your post game chat with Alex?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, for me, he had just recorded a bit on Chelsea Handler's show on Netflix, and so he was telling us about that, and he said she has a much larger budget than Jeopardy, and her show is a lot more racy. And I said, well, maybe if you were racier, then you'd have a bigger budget. He just looked at me like I was crazy. And on the third show, after I lost, I said something to him. I said, it's a good thing I lost because I ran out of shirts. And he, thinking he would laugh, and I think he knew I was crazy. So that's all I remember.
So we really talked about the game. So he understood my guess of where to learn. He was like, I understand, but he was really bewildered by Neil guessing Shania Twain. He was pretty much like, what? Why'd you guess Shania Twain? And then Kathy is like, if only she had more money. You know, so definitely about that. And he also questioning. I guess he didn't understand real wager because it's very atypical. Again, a lot of people would go all in second place, but he's very questioned Neil about his wager, and Neil ended up explaining. I think trying to explain to Alex what's the process behind it. So, but it was all about the game. He talked about it.
Interesting, and I think it goes to show that sometimes Al, even when he's talking about on the show itself, he sometimes I can tell he sometimes doesn't quite understand that whole second place strategy thing a little bit.
Yeah.
Speaking of things that Alex says about the game situation, this came up on Facebook last week. How do we feel, or how, as a group, how do we feel when Alex, mentions things like on a contestants facing a daily double and is like, you're close to a runaway, or at the end of Double Jeopardy saying, and it's a runaway, or not quite a runaway? How do we feel about him making comments like that about the score and the game situation? Like, do we think that that's okay, or do we think that he should just leave it to the players to figure out themselves?
I guess if the runway is really obvious, maybe it might be okay. But I can totally see both sides. I guess maybe I actually don't. Maybe I can understand why people don't like Alex doing that. I guess because it takes some of the agency of wagering, even if it is a runaway, and even if you do the math, but you still have to do the math.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I could understand why people being bothered when he does that.
And you still have to take into consideration the category.
Right.
How strong do you feel in it?
Mm-hmm.
That is true. And I've noticed that, but I don't think it's ever bothered me. I don't think if I were on the show because I would expect I would be able to determine that myself, regardless. So.
Well, I wonder if he does it because they don't want someone to lose for that reason. Because it's probably been brought up on this show before that they give you the who or what to put before they ask.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I hope that's not like.
Oh, that has come up before, but it's also it's also good to know too. So
because they said because they don't want someone to lose because they forgot to phrase it in the form of a question. So I'm wondering if that's kind of in the same.
It's happened before. It happened like 25, 30 years ago, but it's happened before. There's actually I don't know what to search for YouTube on to find it, but there was I know recently I stumbled upon that specific situation where Alex even was like, the contestant gave the correct response, and Alex, he was like, you're correct, and you're gonna get the money, and then the judges off camera were like, wait a second, this isn't in the form of a question, and Alex had to backtrack, and the contestant was heartbroken, and Alex goes right over there and it's like, I'm so sorry, but
yes.
And since then they've provided the pronoun.
Right. Well, that's why I thought maybe he says, "Oh, this is a runaway," so that somebody doesn't make a mistake. But I could see how it would be more fair for him not to do that. But
I mean, I don't know. I mean, my feeling is sometimes you could hear those words, and then that could paralyze you just as easily.
well, I was paralyzed no matter what. Whatever he would have said, I couldn't do math at that point. So I'm just lucky I got through the whole thing.
But you did, though. You did. A lot of people would.
Yeah.
You did better.
And I don't think I said this on here, but when I got there in the morning, they have you fill out all the paperwork. I had to look at my license to remember my address to write down because I was so nervous. So it was downhill from there. It's just I don't know how it worked out the way it did.
I think from what I've heard, the contestant coordinators are used to contestants being a little bit nervous, and they seem to generally do a very good job of calming contestants down as much as they can.
Oh yeah, and Maggie is something else. So she alone is like, yeah, she's like, you can talk to her about anything, and
Yeah.
she was like, in between contestant breaks, she was looking at my hands, and you have such amazing hands. You consider being my hand model? Like, it was a little bit disarming. So I guess that took the edge off and distracting from the moment. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's her job, and she's good at doing it. So.
I did remember something that happened. She told everyone, I was in makeup when she started her speech, so I think I missed a lot of it.
Right.
And she said something about the room that the winner gets to change in.
Right.
So after I won my first game, I went back to the green room, and I was waiting for the restroom, and she said, "Oh, well, here, I'll unlock this room so you can change." I said, "Oh, I'll change in the bathroom." And everybody just stopped and stared. Why? You get to use the winner's change room. Why would you change the bathroom? And I didn't really think about it. I was just like, "Oh, no, I'm right here. It's fine." So luckily, I had that second opportunity to go into the super special changing room. But I guess I was the first one to ever decline.
That's a big Jeopardy wrong, I guess, maybe. I don't know.
Well, something that I've just noticed while looking through my Laurie McDougall mentions on the YouTube chat. She also started to go into the bathroom as opposed to the winner's change room. So
what is it about the winner's change room? Was it?
Well, it's just, I guess the idea is that Ken Jennings was in there however many times, and all the winners from the past. It was cool. I just didn't realize it.
Is there anything cool in there, or like photos or posters?
Well, there's a fountain and a couch. No, I'm just kidding.
I fall for it.
Alcoholic beverages.
Alcohol.
No, I wish. Maybe I would have been less nervous. I don't know.
So one thing I actually just noticed, or just remembered, I should say, because I noticed this the first time around watching the games, you were really, really strong on the signaling device, Amanda. Especially in your last two games.
It felt like every time I wanted to get in, I did. But watching it didn't seem that way. I don't know. When I left there, I felt like I rang in 10 times, got 5 questions correct, 5 questions incorrect, and then ended up winning, and I don't know how. That's how it felt. All I could remember were the ones that I got wrong. But ringing in, it did seem like when I knew them, I was able to get in, but it didn't seem like there were that many. I don't know. It was a blur, so I'd have to watch it again. I don't know.
And also, I mean, Hardy, you did reasonably well on the signaling device as well. So I guess, usually when I preface it with, you did really well, I kind of am curious to know if you have any tips.
Oh.
Oh wow. I don't know. I just waited for the lights. I know people said like to wait until he finished speaking and stuff like that, but I knew I was ended up locking up myself when I did that. So I just looked at the lights and but
I was the opposite.
Oh yeah,
I
so you
just
did.
listened. I didn't notice the lights the whole time I was on there. I just
Oh,
waited
wow.
for him to stop. I felt like I was ringing in late, and it worked. But I don't want to tell other people to do that. I just figured out the time, and that's when I did it. I don't know.
Maybe it's just psychological for me because
Yeah.
I just like I'm a more visual person than an oral.
Yeah.
Audio portion, so I just went for the lights, and as soon as the lights came up, I think it's from me playing video games in high school and college. Paying attention in
Yeah,
high school.
Yeah, for me, I just kind of remembered what Glenn said in my audition, like wait until Alex was finished.
Yeah.
And I took it as on the last syllable, be ready to buzz.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But then, getting in the studio, just like the lights were kind of like a second layer that you're not quite ready for until you are, or you're not.
Mm-hmm. So also looking at this, in your last game, you had a Canadian Lakes category.
Oh gosh, yes. And that for me, that was a situation where I said, whatever you do, don't say Lake Ontario. Amanda, what is Lake Ontario? And you can see me laughing after I say it because I knew. And that's, yeah, I know Lake Erie is more southern. I don't know why. I didn't. It was just one of those things. And Alex, you can't see Alex, but the way he looked at me, like, didn't we just talk about your husband being from Canada and you are in Michigan? Like, in this look he gave, he said it all. And yeah, I know. I know better.
So clear. So I'm clear. I guess Alex kind of gives that look, I guess, to everyone if they screw up on the question.
He kind of gave me that when I said Belfast, when I meant to say the Welsh city.
Cardiff.
Yeah, Cardiff. That's what I said. He didn't look like that on the show, but maybe the editor or something. But he kind of gave me. So.
I felt lucky that the only thing that came close to a Canadian question was about the NHL, and it's like I got spared that special circle of where.
I will say though, from a Jeopardy live panel perspective, though, Hardy, Jerry Shaw, who was on a couple of our season 1 panels, spent some time recently in Sydney, and so she actually spent some time in Woolloomooloo herself, and so it was knowing that she, I was kind of screaming, Sydney at my television, but I mean, I had a bit of sympathy, but
Yeah. Sydney did not come even you could have sat there for 30 minutes and I would not have gotten near Australia. So yeah, that was a silly one.
So what else did you guys do when you were in Los Angeles / Culver City for the taping?
Well, I've been in Los Angeles a number of times. So at that time, I went to the Getty Museum also with my friend and I. We went around town. So I've done all the this touristy Beverly Hills, Hollywood stuff. So kind of, the Getty really isn't off the beaten path in Los Angeles, but we just kind of did something that wasn't too crazy. So.
What about you, Amanda? I think Amanda might be having some technical issues here. Her audio seems to have cut out. Fred, did I ask you this question? Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. It's back.
Okay, great. You're back. You're back. That's okay.
What did I do in Los Angeles was the question,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Well, my husband couldn't go with me because we had just gotten back from Europe and he couldn't take any more time. So a friend from work went with me. And I didn't understand how the whole thing worked. I was under the impression that I was going to be there on Tuesday and Wednesday. So I didn't really plan anything. Well, because I was finished on Tuesday, we ended up going to the Walk of Fame, basically, and just hanging out, getting some pictures. And we went to the Wax Museum just because we hadn't planned anything. But it was fun. I'd never been to the state of California at all before that. So
Nice.
we did.
Now, Fred, did I ask you this question at all before on live panel?
So I finally get to say it.
Mm-hmm.
I celebrated after the first win at Venice Beach.
Oh, awesome.
Walked it at kind of at sunset because it was kind of late afternoon, and did a little bit of Hollywood Boulevard, and my last day out there, because it was weird because it was so close to Christmas, it ended up being a Monday Tuesday taping schedule instead of Tuesday.
Oh, wow.
But we were still in LA on Wednesday, so I got to go to some place that I'd heard of, that I'd seen pictures of, but just was like, oh, no, I'm never going to get here, because back when I was about 12 years old and I went out there with my grandmother, she was trying to keep me away from hood things.
Yeah.
But I got to see the Watts Towers.
Oh, wow. That's all right. Yeah.
It was gorgeous.
Yeah.
Also, got up to Griffith Park, like right from the Watts Towers. Not the shortest drive. And I'm trying to do this in a rented car through LA traffic. And then hung out, found an online pen pal of mine. We finally met and had lunch at Cantor's Deli, and just basically ogled the pictures of our now former president, stopping there frequently when he was in LA, because there are lots of pictures of Barack Obama on the walls at Cantor's.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So some comments actually we've got on Twitter. Alyssa Flagg is happy that I asked her favorite question about how it's different watching Jeopardy now that she's taped, or now that you've taped. Now with Alyssa, she said she hasn't been on, obviously, but if she ever did get on, she'd have a hard time watching after losing unless she had a great streak.
Mm-hmm.
Jay Johnson has chimed in with a bit of a comment on the whole, Alex and understanding wagering. He is still waiting for Alex to break out we've got a Shores conjecture game here. It should be a good Final Jeopardy. Wager carefully.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll ever hear Alex ever mention Shores conjecture on the air.
I've never, the 2 days I was there, I never heard anybody else on the staff mention anything wager related.
No. I mean, nothing beyond I don't know. Yeah, no.
No. It took until looking last week on the J Archive to realize that my first episode was very shortegic. Very, very shortegic. And I didn't know, until almost a year after it aired.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, at this point, I'm wondering if there's anything that you thought I'd bring up tonight but didn't, or any questions you have in between panelists.
This was kind of a spur of the moment thing for me. I wish I had better prepared. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
It's all right. Wow. I guess I'm just curious about just the time between your auditions and or maybe how many auditions, and you getting out to tape?
For me, I think took the test last winter. I don't remember exactly when I took this test. Probably January. Then I got invited to audition in June in person, and then I got the call in August, and then I shot in September, the last week of September. So it's about a month between the in-person, or the call, and then the shooting date.
Yeah, mine was similar. I talked a little bit ago about how they wanted me to go the week before I went on vacation. I took the test in January. They called June 11th, I remember, for some reason. That's when the audition was. And I think, I got the call. It must have been August to go out September 19th. So it seemed really fast. It seemed a lot faster than that.
Yeah.
Because for me, it was like a year between the exam and just the call for the audition. And then, had the audition, and then, then 6 months later, they're starting to call me saying, okay, can you come out? And then for various reasons, I couldn't. And I think I've told you this before, Andy. I mean, when I finally was ready to go out, was on my way almost to the airport, I get this call from this guy named Rocky saying, by the way, Alex is having knee replacement surgery. It's not happening this week. So that pushed things back a month. So from audition to taping was flat-footed 9 months. It would have been 6. It would have been 6, but then I got married the week I was supposed to go the first time, and then would have been 8, but knee replacement.
Yeah, Alex's knee replacement last year certainly threw a big, wrench into a whole bunch of different things.
Yeah, it's like all of us who taped on, around that time, even across different taping weeks, we just like, yeah, it was fun. It was fun having to reschedule and, being in an airport 5 hours from home, or being on the way to an airport 5 hours from home.
Wow. Jeez. That's crazy. I can't even imagine.
So are there any other questions or comments at this point?
And it was really hard for me. So many people are so excited and try so hard to get on it. And I'm extraordinarily shy. I am like freaking out being on this show. So it has been very difficult to get attention. I think I mentioned somewhere before that I didn't have a bridal shower because I couldn't handle the attention. So I don't know how many other people have that experience, but I'm glad I did it. Obviously, it's just been a lot of pressure. And
I thought I would be nervous, but like the practice runs before taping really helped.
Oh yeah. If without that, I don't know what I would have done.
I probably would have been 50 times more nervous than if I didn't have those. So, but yeah.
That's really good. That's really interesting and good to know, I'd say. Especially also, I wonder, how many other people might, hear about your story, Amanda,
and do it anyway.
Or hear about that and think, maybe I can do this and give it a shot. So,
I think my experience would have been different also if day 2 and day 3 were reversed. I got both finals wrong, but I don't think people would have focused on Tesla and Edison as much if it hadn't been the one that I lost on, for good. If I had gotten Tesla and Edison wrong but won anyway, and then lost on the Lord of the Flies one, then I wouldn't have gotten. I still get the negativity at work and things over it. So,
Well, Well, to be honest, you should see how well your coworkers do on the test next time around.
Exactly.
There was,
Good point.
in case you missed it, the news reporter at the Phoenix auditions mentioned in passing at the end of their report that it sounds like the next round of online testing is coming up in May. So that's
Yeah, I did see that.
a good thing to at least keep an eye and or ear out for if you're a hopeful. So that's coming up soon. In absence of anything else, I'm just going to check the hashtag. Oh, there's Alyssa Flagg mentions, I feel Amanda, but I would never even take the test. She loves Jeopardy, but would never want to ruin that by going on.
I totally get that.
Whereas I had the opposite experience. I was like all gung ho to take the test, and then on the air acted like the shyest person ever. I mean, I was just this camera's still scared. I mean, real.
The red lights.
I mean, to the point where I think like the first couple of shows was like the worst, like Twitter craziness where people were calling me Prince Valiant.
Oh no.
Oh, that's terrible.
I've been called worse than that, if it helps.
But then I turned into America's stress test once the wins happened. So it's like, okay, take your pick here.
Like, I will say I feel as though Jeopardy Twitter has gotten a lot better in the past year in terms of how they deal with contestants, at least to me. Or at least, from what I see. I could be horribly wrong and reading things completely terribly, but to me, it seems like it's improved, at least in terms of, there are more, it seems like, the people who kind of talk about the show all the time seem to be obviously more respectful of things. And there don't seem to be quite as many people harping on, the contestants. Obviously, people still talk about, if they feel that Jeopardy has messed up somehow.
Yeah.
But I mean, or heaven, as you mentioned, yourself, I guess heaven forbid, they perceive a contestant hasn't, phrased their response in the form of a question. But
yeah, that was me.
I mean, to me, it was, the fact that Alex and the judges weren't saying anything at all was proof enough to me that you were saying it and they were hearing it. It just wasn't coming in on the broadcast.
Enunciated it better, but the contestant coordinators didn't mention a thing to me. So,
did anybody else?
No.
I guess not until you heard. What were your thoughts hearing the broadcast? Were you
Yeah, I could understand. I was speaking. I probably could have spoken louder at least. Yeah, I could understand that, but the criticism of that I didn't care. Really, it didn't faze me. I mean, I just need to speak louder. That's all.
Fair enough.
By nature, I'm a very quiet. I'm generally a quiet speaker. So.
Okay.
I thought of a question if I'm not too late.
No, you're not too late. Yeah, go ahead.
Have you been recognized at all because of Jeopardy?
A couple of times in the subway.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, just a couple of times. I mean, in the New York City subway, I'm bound to see someone that watches Jeopardy and knows, Saturday knows that I was on the show. But yeah.
Hear me?
Yeah.
We can still hear you.
Okay. I went to New Orleans last weekend, and in the security line, there were two security lines. Someone from the other line shouted across, "Hey, were you on Jeopardy last week?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Oh, I was rooting for you." So that was cool, And my husband says he overheard somebody talking at the grocery store. They didn't come up to me. They were pointing behind my back, I guess, saying she was on Jeopardy. So those were the only two.
See, the weirdness is I suffer from living in a town of 2,400 people.
Oh,
A good 1/24th of whom were at the bar for my viewing party. But then there was also when we were going down to Florida last March, car rental rep, not our rep, at the Fort Lauderdale airport. And then a few days later, a city maintenance worker in Key West.
Huh.
Like, over. Like, were you on Jeopardy? I mean, that was like, wow.
yeah.
They watched Jeopardy in paradise.
Jeopardy airs at a slightly more convenient time in paradise than where it does where you are, Fred.
Oh, hello.
So,
beautiful.
Yeah. Okay, well, yeah, I guess I have a kind of a strange question for you, Hardy.
Okay.
If you lived in a spot where Jeopardy aired at 7:30, how weird would that feel for you?
Very strange. When I traveled to North Carolina, I think, when Wheel of Fortune's on first, and then Jeopardy, which is really strange. New York, it's always been on 7 o'clock in ABC.
For a long time.
Yeah.
So I can't, it's like, for me, that's just like, it's dinner, then Jeopardy, then I don't watch Wheel of Fortune personally, but then maybe something else, and then primetime television. Right. So it'll be really odd, especially, it's so bizarre even hearing that in the afternoon to me, because like you're at work, and that'd be strange. Like, would you catch Jeopardy when it's in the afternoon? That is strange to me.
I was in Rockford, Illinois, the day after Christmas at a thing, and I kind of was like a little like blown up because the meal was being served basically during Jeopardy.
Yeah.
It comes on at 2:30.
Yeah, that's so weird to me.
Yep, it comes on at 2:30 in the afternoon in Rockford. Yeah.
You know, and I'm sitting up here thinking, okay, I thought Madison at 4:30 was just bad enough.
Yeah, because I usually watch with my mom and my dad when I was younger. I mean, I lived with them still, and so we always used to watch like after dinner.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, those few days in Florida, like, I mean, granted, Wheel got in the way first, but still, like, Jeopardy in the evening where it kind of belongs.
I would love to see TiVo adoption by geography based on, at some point, back when it first became a thing, when TiVo first became a thing. I would love to see, early adopting of TiVo, for people who wanted to tape Jeopardy.
Yeah, I used to have to tape Jeopardy because her sisters didn't watch it. So, and I wasn't the one to be like fighting with television. And so I just TiVo'd it and then watched it later. Yeah, and now I'm a cable cutter, so I don't even cable or TV, so I just watch it live at 7 o'clock.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I'd like to thank you guys for coming on to hashtag Jeopardy Live panel tonight. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed tonight's discussion. Next episode will be next Monday night at 8:05 p.m. Eastern. We seem to have a good thing going on Mondays, so I am not really I don't really feel like I don't feel like switching the time around. So yeah, next Monday 8:05. So thank you guys for joining me tonight. It was a lot of fun. And also, one more thing on the hashtag from Jay Johnson to you, Fred: small towns for the win. And so once again, thank you to all of you who are tuning in. Also for you guys, all three of you, for joining me tonight on panel. Let me just quickly get the credits up. There we go. And thank you very much. And I'll see you next week on hashtag Jeopardy Live panel. Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good night.